Ladies, a very good evening to you both, and thank you for coming in. Ria, let's start with you. You have been in football for decades, and things are seemingly not changing for women in the football space. What has kept you going?
Well, thank you for inviting us to your studio this evening. Well, you know, when you have the desire, when you have the passion for something, it doesn't matter what happens in the boardroom and everywhere else, you keep going. I think there is a lot of improvement in terms of women's football. We have seen a lot of our national teams going to the World Cup. You know, Banyana going to the World Cup for the first time, you know, and going to the final of AFCON. And that has been a great achievement for us.
Mimi, let's bring you into the conversation because you are in an area that is growing but still not as prominent as football. How is it that you and the women that you work with are still so interested, still trying to push ahead to grow the sport?
Tembegile, thank you for having me. Before I answer your question, let me just correct a few things. I'm former president of Netball South Africa. My last year was in 2017 when I worked with Netball South Africa. But coming back to your question, I think these are very exciting times for netball because we are just from the World Cup and everybody was behind the Spar Proteas, and we are so proud that they were able to get to the semi-finals. So I can safely say, yes, netball is growing. It has been growing for the past, I think 7 years, and it's through hard work. And I must also congratulate Ria and Banyana because we are also very proud to see women representing us at the World Cup.
Ria, I want to come back to you then because these are national teams participating in these World Cups. Domestic leagues are still a problem. There isn't much of a women's domestic league, at least I don't know of one, in either football, cricket, or rugby. Why is that still not happening? We've been having this conversation for, what, a good 20 years at least.
Then you are not in sports if you don't know that in football we do have a provincial league that has been running. Sasol has been our sponsor for the past 10 years. That league has been running with 144 teams, 16 per province. We have seen a lot of growth coming from that provincial league. Now we are in the process where the NEC has decided to establish a national league. I see you have written it as a professional league. You must know that SAFA it's in charge of amateur leagues, so the professional league will be with the PSL. So we are forming a national league of women of 12 teams. Starting with 12 teams, we'll end up in the next 2 years with 16 teams. And indeed, we will be launching this league in August this year.
So the work and the teams exist. What appears to be lacking, at least from where us as the general public is concerned, is that I suppose we're not hearing enough about the work of these teams and where they are participating and all of that. Where are the solutions? Is it the media that's to blame or the administrators who simply aren't doing enough for these teams?
Well, you know, a very good example, we are at the COSAFA Cup right now. Banyana, they are playing, they are winning all their games. Under 20s also at COSAFA, they are winning all their games. What do we see from the media? Nothing, except the results. Why are we not seeing something? Why are we not getting shots of what is happening there? We're only seeing the results. So we're not getting that much of exposure that we should get. After even qualifying, I mean, the under 20 also qualified for the World Cup. Banyana qualified for the World Cup. So we need more exposure from the media. We definitely need that.
Mimi, let's come back to you then in the capital, Pretoria. Is that where the issue is, that we simply aren't giving the women teams enough attention, enough exposure in order to grow the sport?
I think that it's partly true that we don't get the same exposure as other sporting codes, especially those that are male-dominated. But then, Tembegile, I think we also as women have to really try and work hard to put ourselves out there. if I were to just take a few examples of what we did with netball, because right now I think everybody understands netball, everybody has got idols and players that they are following from the Spa Project team. We made a point of making sure that although we are an amateur sport and run by volunteers, but when we decided in 2012 to start a Premier League, I won't say it was a professional league because it's far from getting there, but when we started a Premier League, one of the things that we decided to do was make sure that we brand ourselves, make sure that people know and understand what netball is, make sure that people can identify with players, because soccer, cricket, rugby, when people follow these federations and codes in numbers, it's because of they identify with players that they like. So we decided that we wanted to brand netball. We wanted to put netball out there in the face of everybody. Then we also made sure that we partner with a number of partners, stakeholders, a number of people who came on board and helped us to brand ourselves, helped us to create that vibe and make sure that those who are passionate, like people who work, behind the scenes, they also get noticed. So I think it's important for us, whilst we wait for the media to do something, we must also, as women, stand up, stop comparing ourselves to men. Yes, we can learn from how they've been out there and how they've achieved so many things, but we need to work for ourselves.
Work for ourselves, stand up and fight, Ria says, Mimi. And that brings us to the issue of the pay disparities in sport, women still being paid significantly less. How much of a fight are you as women in sport putting up right now to make sure that sponsors and whoever else is responsible for paying these women come to the party?
I think it is very clear right now that we struggling in getting sponsors for women's football. I'm sure for other women's sporting code also. It's a struggle. We are trying our best to get the sponsor. You would know that for all these years we only had Sasol. For the past 10 years they've been taking us through the processes, and now we are forming a national league. We're still struggling to get a sponsor. And to come to your question, are we paying the girls equally the same as the boys? But where do we get the money from? The money should come from the sponsor, like we get the sponsor for Bafana Bafana. That's what they get. They get because there is a sponsor for that. But I think South African Football Association has gone beyond the call of duty, created, for example, the High Performance Center. It's a center where we have put 25 girls there, paying 6 million rand a year for those girls. We don't have a sponsor for that. But if you look at the quality of the national team players, they come from that academy. They could have come from these 144 teams that are playing out there. But those teams are also struggling to get some sponsor. Yes, it is indeed our desire to make sure that our girls are paid equally as the men. But the first thing that we need to get is to get them a good sponsor that can be able to pay them that kind of money.
Mimi, critics of this call for equitable pay between men and women in sports say, well, we can never expect the women to earn as much because their games don't attract as large a following. There generally isn't a fan base for the sport outside of the World Cup and the likes of that. And even that, they say, is only when the teams are doing well. How do you deal with that argument?
I think for netball, we started from that point of departure where we thought we are going to look at the fan base. But then there are other things that we've put in place, like introducing different competitions that are going to help the girls. Like right now, there are so many players that are playing overseas, but I don't think that is the main objective. The main objective is to get everybody who plays, as a woman, to get recognized and earn a living out of it. I think one of the objectives for creating establishing the Premier League was exactly that. It's happening on a very small scale, but I don't think it would be fair to say you must compare women to men and then give them salaries accordingly. I believe that an athlete who wakes up every day, goes and trains, and we cannot really weigh the pressure that athletes go through. If you're playing soccer, it doesn't mean that you are working harder than a person who's playing netball. If you're playing rugby, it doesn't mean that you're working harder than a person who's playing netball. I believe that each and every athlete should be rewarded according to how they are performing. And right now, netball players are performing at the very highest level. They are playing overseas, they're playing in super leagues, and the athleticism that you see them displaying whenever they play, it's hard work. It needs to be rewarded. So we must move away from comparing sport and thinking that if we say you are a girl, then you should get less because your sport probably is a little bit easier, or you don't have the same fan base like soccer, cricket, and rugby.
Okay, I want a very quick one, Rhea. Do we need to change laws? Does it need to come down to regulation for this change to move fast enough?
I think what is important is also for government to come on board, in terms of the parastatals that are there. What are they doing in terms of just advancing funding for women's football, for women's sports? So I wouldn't say we should change the laws, but I'm saying it is important that we have companies out there that are really dealing with women's products, that are on a daily basis we use those products. What are they bringing to the party? Why are they not coming to? Are we not attractive enough to be able to attract those sponsors, even when we qualified for the World Cup?
All right. Rhea Ledwaba, Mimi Mthethwa, thank you both for your time tonight.
Thank you.